Good evening and thank you for attending this press conference. My name is Justin Flanagan. I'm the Western Regional Medal Chief of the Chickamauga Nation. Here with me tonight is also Chief Jimmy Kirsch, the National Antler Chief of the Chickamauga Nation. I'd like to start by recognizing our tribal volunteers that helped us pull this together, as well as the tribal members present that we in leadership represent. We, the chiefs, are servants of the people. We are the foundation and backbone of the tribe, and we carry the people where they want to go. Many of you may be asking, where do you want to go? Or specifically, what do you want here in Arkansas? And the answer to that is simple. We want what was promised to us, promises made by United States presidents to our ancestors, promises made in treaty. Why are treaties important? The United States Constitution is the bedrock of federal government. To subvert treaties is to undermine the federal government. According to Article 6 of the United States Constitution, treaties are the supreme law of the land. It reads, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding." In other words, if the territory known as Arkansas claims statehood, then it is subject to federal government treaties. Treaties which traded land in Arkansas to the Chickamauga. After 1828, there were Chickamauga who went west into the territory known as Oklahoma. But many Chickamauga remained here in the Arkansas River Valley, including Franklin County. We know and can easily prove that the Treaty of 1828 that trades land in Arkansas for land in Oklahoma was signed in duress and by people that were not qualified or authorized by the Grand Council to sign treaties with the United States government. I will expand on our history further in a moment, but this is where we are currently. The governor of the territory known as Arkansas has declined to acknowledge us, communicate with us, or recognize us in any way, shape, or form. The fiasco that is happening on Mill Creek Mountain in Franklin County has shown me what my tribal elders have warned me about. That colonial government will push and take until there is nothing left for Native Americans. I have seen the way that the governor of the territory known as Arkansas has treated her constituents that are not tribal. It is much the same. The governor of this territory has shown no interest in the will of the people. There has been nearly as little communication between the governor and the county government officials as there has been between the governor and our tribal government officials. But Franklin County has fought back against the governor's office and the Board of Corrections for nearly a year, and the people show no signs of fatigue. The debacle in Franklin County has spurred our tribe into action. The disregard shown for our promised land, our sacred sites, the graves of our ancestors, and the encroachment on the habitat of our sacred bird, the bald eagle, has inspired us to push harder for federal servicing than ever before. We ourselves can be pushed no further. We had hoped to meet with the Board of Corrections and the governor in the last Board of Corrections meeting. A motion was proposed for the board to meet with our tribal leaders. The motion died on the floor, and the governor's office remained silent. But we, the Chickamauga, will not be. As stewards of the lands and waters here in Arkansas since before 1785, 51 years before statehood, it is our solemn responsibility to uphold our rights guaranteed to us by the God of nature, the laws of nature, treaties, traded lands, and lands promised to our tribe by Presidents Thomas Jefferson and James Monroe. From the early 1800s forward, the Indian agents in Arkansas, Beerley, Lovely, and Meigs, intentionally misidentified our chiefs and people as Cherokee. Out of ignorance or laziness or both, the lower town Chickamauga chiefs and people were identified as Cherokee because they spoke a dialect of Cherokee trade language, not because they were ethnically Cherokee. George Washington, during his 4th annual address to Congress, identified us as Chickamauga. The War Department records identified as either Lower Town Chickamauga, Lower Town Cherokee, or Lower Town Cherokee or Chickamauga. There should have been no excuse for misidentifying our chiefs and people as Cherokee. We have signed more than 22 treaties with the United States as Chickamauga chiefs, headmen, and warriors of the lower towns. Most of the treaties signed with the United States were exclusively signed by our chiefs as the chiefs of the Cherokee Nation, because there were so many different Cherokee nations as the United States knew as exemplified in the 1785 treaty. In 1809, Thomas Jefferson promised to trade us lands in Arkansas for lands east of the Mississippi. We were told to find lands where there were no other Indians, and we could have the lands. We were encouraged to go north of the Arkansas River, but it is not a required stipulation. We already occupied the St. Francis River to its mouth at the Arkansas. The 1817 treaty gave us the White River, the Black River, Buffalo River, Illinois River, Arkansas River, and the lands surrounding them. The War Department records, Arkansas territorial papers, and renowned anthropologists of the early 1800s all identified our lands as being on both sides of the Arkansas River. On May 6, 1817, the Cherokee Nation Council represented 54 towns and villages east of the Mississippi by lead chief Pathkiller. The third article of the laws of the Cherokee Nation reads, "The authority and claim of our common property shall cease with the person or persons who shall think proper to remove themselves without the limits of the Cherokee Nation." The fourth article reads, "The improvements and labors of our people by the mother's side shall be inviolate during the time of their occupancy." In Renard Strickland's book, Fire and Spirit, on page 101, it states that the laws of the Cherokee Nation, LCN number 57, was intended to exclude Cherokees who had migrated to Arkansas from ownership of property in the Old Nation in Georgia. Again, LCN number 119 and 139 through 140 says, "If any citizen of this nation shall bind themselves by enrollment or otherwise as immigrants to Arkansas, shall forfeit all rights and privileges as citizens of this nation." This act is demonstrated by a decision of the Cherokee Supreme Court in 1830. The Cherokee Phoenix reported, "The Cherokee Nation Supreme Court ruled that an individual named Dark Horse, provided that each of his 4 sons should have a part of the large estate that he had accumulated during his lifetime. However, the court refused to honor the will which provided for equal distribution of the land and divided the property between the 2 sons who remained in the eastern lands." In the March 1829 Cherokee Phoenix, Elias Boudinot, a Cherokee leader who signed the New Echota Treaty and editor of the Cherokee Phoenix, was quoted saying, "Western or Arkansas Cherokee, they are our brothers, but they have left us and have rights in their own country. They are citizens of another nation." According to renowned University of Arkansas history professor Stanley Hoy, in his seminal work, "The Cherokees and Their Chiefs," on page 139, in 1827, the National Grand Council voted to send a delegation to Washington. The delegation was only empowered to arrange and finally adjust with the President of the United States or others all the unsettled matters concerning the Western Outlet and Lovely's Purchase. There was no intention by the National Council to authorize the delegation to become involved in treaty matters, which would have allowed them to trade away their Arkansas lands. The delegation was detained at gunpoint at a hotel in Washington for over a month and were cajoled, whiskied, and bribed into signing an agreement for exchanging their Arkansas land for Lovely's Purchase. As Chickamauga, who have been misidentified as Cherokee, we can prove that we are not ethnically or legally Cherokee according to the Cherokee Nation and by the full faith and credit clause of the United States Constitution. The Cherokee Nation, which voluntarily relocated from Georgia through Arkansas in the fall and winter of 1838 to 39 as they made their way to Indian Territory, is not ethnically, politically, culturally, or historically the Lower Town Chickamauga, who were known in Arkansas as Western Cherokee or Old Settler Cherokee. The Chickamauga Nation, through treaties, promises, and traded lands in Arkansas, still retains jurisdictional rights, mineral, water, timber, grazing, and terrestrial rights, which no treaty has ever disestablished, in accordance with McGirt versus Oklahoma. The Chickamauga Nation, through treaties, promises, and traded lands in Arkansas, still retains jurisdictional rights. We, the Chickamauga Nation, will not allow any person, entity, organization, incorporation, tribe, or state to interfere with our economic or political integrity as outlined in Montana versus the United States. Let this serve as notice that the Chickamauga Nation intends to defend its federally guaranteed treaty, constitutional, and civil rights. We have waited long enough. The time for silence is over. We stand. Thank you. Chief Kirsch, would you like to tell them about our flags while we set up for the...
Our national peace flag is our white flag with our ancient acts of authority on it. It represents us being at peace here in the United States. Our ancient acts, you can find it illustrated all the way back into the early to mid centuries BC at the pyramid at Chichen Itza. You can also find the exact same symbol at the Spiro Mounds. You can find the exact same symbol at the Cahokia Mounds right outside of St. Louis on the Illinois side. This same symbol is represented throughout most of the mounds in the southeast woodlands. The two-striped flag is called a two-row wampum flag. It represents, going way back historically, to the Jamestown settlements, that you have a government and we have a government, and we will walk beside each other, respecting each other's governments. And so that wampum belt can be found in numerous tribes along the East Coast. We also have adopted it as our agreement to walk side by side with the governments. Then, very few people have an understanding of what these represent. If you have seen the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and especially on the major holidays, they have streamers and banners on the American flag representing all of the battles that the United States has ever fought. Each of these streamers with a date represent battles that we have fought with the United States government. The yellow streamers are battles. The blue streamers represent capital areas. The red streamers represent forts that our tribe fought at and took down. And the black streamers are our martyred that have been martyred by the United States and another tribe here in the United States. We historically have tried to be peaceful. What these represent are not massacres. If you look at the treaties from 1730 with England called the Whitehall Treaty, the 1785 treaty that we signed here with the United States, gave us permission, both treaties, if someone comes and lives on your land without your permission, you have the right to punish them according to your own laws. That's what most of these represent. Those people came onto our lands, and we punished them to the fullest extent of our law. Chief?
Go ahead and shut that down. We'll set up for at this point, we'll set up for our PowerPoint presentation. This is a presentation that was put together by one of our chiefs, Chief Tim Kersey. He is the Chief of Commerce and Finance. Returning in love that which was taken in hatred. Vengeance and revenge destroy the very essence of man's inner self. Man was not created to deliver retribution. We were created to love and care for our fellow man. On reading the detailed exploits of hatred against the Chickamauga people, it would be easy to seek vengeance, revenge, and retribution. Giving in to that desire creates callousness in our own hearts, which makes us no better than those who sought and still seek to eradicate us. We must call upon our better angels to return in love, which was taken in hatred. As we Chickamauga go about our daily lives, we must seek to return in love that which was taken in hate, not just for ourselves, but also for those around us. In accordance with the United States Constitution, treaties, and the statutes and codes of the United States, the Chickamauga Nation is a federally recognized tribe that is not serviced. As such, the Chickamauga Nation asserts its government-to-government sovereign treaty tribe status as being a domestic sovereign under the jurisdiction of the United States since 1785. As a federally recognized sovereign treaty tribe, the Chickamauga is committed to exercising all rights and privileges to protect and defend its citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. The Chickamauga Nation has a long history of forming alliances and partnerships in government-to-government, government-to-business, and relationships with entities that share its commitment to the security and economic well-being of the Chickamauga Nation and its citizens. Therefore, the Chickamauga Nation will provide for the economic growth and development of the Chickamauga Nation and its citizens for seven generations into the future through creating government-to-government, government-to-business, and business-to-citizen relationships with all government and businesses willing to provide for the development of economic security for the tribe and its citizens. To provide for the health and well-being of the Chickamauga Nation and its citizens for 7 generations into the future through creating the same. To provide access to all health and well-being services and to build a health and well-being infrastructure for the tribe and its citizens. To provide for affordable shelter for the Chickamauga Nation and its citizens for 7 generations into the future, with all government and businesses willing to provide for the infrastructure to build and maintain affordable shelter for the tribe and its citizens. To provide for the K through 12 and higher education of the Chickamauga Nation citizens for 7 generations into the future, through government-to-government relations and businesses willing to provide the financial requirements and expertise necessary to bring online the Chickamauga Nation education system created by Taskmaster Education. We also will provide for affordable organic heirloom food for the Chickamauga Nation and its citizens for 7 generations into the future, through creating government-to-government and government-to-business and business-to-citizen relationships with all governments and businesses willing to provide financial and economic expertise for the growth and development of organic heirloom vegetables, proteins, and starches for the Chickamauga Nation and its citizens. Emetoya Moitoy was known as the Emperor of the Cherokee. He was my 11th great-grandfather. And his daughter was named Sarah Ottertail. Our son was Charles Scalway McGee. My grandmother was Janice McGee. And that's where my Chickamauga line comes through. 1730s, Chief Emetoya Moitoy was to meet with the King of England, George II, to sign the Whitehall Treaty. Attakulla went in Moitoy's stead. He was Dragon Canoe's father, as Moitoy's wife was said to have become ill. Dragon Canoe and his father fought with the British against the colonies. The Chickamauga did not agree with the peace treaty signed by the Cherokee with the colonies. (1684), the South Carolina Treaty. 8 leaders from the towns of Taxaway and Kiowee signed a trade treaty with the English of the province of Carolina. 1730s, Chief Emetoya Moitoy was to meet with the King of England, George II, to sign the Whitehall Treaty. Attakulla, chief of the lower towns, and Dragon Canoe's father went in Moitoy's stead. 1785, Treaty of Hopewell, defined boundaries of sovereign tribal lands and much more. At least 18 of the 37 signers were Chickamauga. 1792, George Washington's 4th annual address to Congress on November 6th. Washington recognized the Chickamauga by name and described their possession of the 5 lower towns. We were also involved in the 1934 Indian Reorganization Act and the 1968 Indian Civil Rights Act. The most important aspect to understand prior to 1800 is that the Chickamauga are the lower town people. The documented written history of the Chickamauga begins in the lower towns as they sign a treaty with the British colony of South Carolina in 1684. The Chickamauga of the lower towns existed prior to 1684 to be able to sign a treaty with South Carolina. The 1684 treaty with the lower towns also extinguishes a myth that in the 1770s, Dragon Canoe began the Chickamauga on the lower towns, since in the 1730s, his father, Attakulla, was a chief in the lower towns. In summary, the Chickamauga Nation wishes to provide the following for its nation and for its citizens: economic growth and development, health and well-being, affordable shelter, K through 12 and higher education, affordable organic heirloom food, and the identification and preservation of our burial grounds and sacred sites. Your generosity helps to preserve our nation. While the United Federal Government recognizes the Chickamauga as a tribe, they have refused to provide services to the tribe as it has done for the 5 civilized tribes of the United States. The Chickamauga Nation, or TCN, is verified with hundreds of thousands of pages of historical documentation and petitioned the U.S. government with the same. That number is actually over 1 million now. This hasn't been updated. The Chickamauga Nation respectfully asks for your assistance as we fight to preserve our centuries-old heritage. Your time and your donations make a difference. For much more information, please go to ChickamaugANation.com or tcnpress.org. The Chickamauga Nation is set up as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Tax-deductible donations may be made to TCN Preservation A, Inc. And that concludes our PowerPoint presentation.
The tribe is not set up as a 501c3. We have a 501c3 that supports the tribe. There is a difference.